Hi guys, Gavesha Stacey back again. How are you all? So today I've got a video about best bookkeeping software to use. When I used to work in my accounting firm, I had probably the top 4 that I would use. So not in any preferential order. They were Xero, QuickBooks, My Account Right, and Wave Accounting. So let's start with the first one. I'll just talk a bit about the pros and cons, basically, of all this software. So starting with Xero, the pro that I found with Xero was the one-step reconciliation process, in the fact that once you had imported all your transactions, set your bank feeds up, then it would automatically reconcile through the bank feed. You wouldn't have to reconcile the transactions and then go in and reconcile the bank feeds in the background. And that's what I mean by two-step reconciliation process. Whereas with QuickBooks, you would tell the transactions where they belong. So in the profit and loss area, so expenses, income, so forth. But then you would also have to do the bank reconciliation. So then you would have to check it against your bank statements and make sure that it reconciles. Whereas with Xero, it automatically does it as you're posting a transaction. It's reconciling the bank account at the same time. So if that makes sense, hopefully, you wouldn't have to do that two-step process, which is quite consuming. Quite time consuming. So the other great technology that Xero has is automation process. So they have this automation memory process where it remembers transactions in your coding when you code to a certain account, or it sees the same sort of repetitive name of a transaction coming through. So when you get your bank feeds coming through Xero, you'll have one side, the left side is all the bank transactions feeding through, and the right side is where you tell Xero where to code it. So on the left side, if a transaction description repeats itself, like bank fees, account fees, or something like that, then it remembers the last time that you coded that transaction to bank fees. It would remember that if the transaction description name was always the same. If it changed, then you would create rules and so forth. So the automation of things was quite good in that it remembered where you previously coded a previous description transaction, if that makes sense. So then another one was the easy matching invoice technology. So when you would create a sale in Xero, and then you would code your or reconcile your bank transactions, it had a matching process. So again, on the left side would be your bank transactions feeding through with your debits and credits, and then on the right side would be the Xero side, basically. And so when you created a sale and you had income coming through on your credit side when your bank transactions, it would match automatically to your sales transactions. So I found that quite handy. And out of all the software that I've used, Xero is the best sales matching software, in that it highlights the right side green and says, oh, is this your invoice that you've created in your sales section, sales invoice section? Is this the invoice that is being paid via your bank transaction that I can see here? And you would just match that. You would just basically go okay and match those two, which is quite simple compared to all the other software. So yeah, I found that Xero had a very good invoice matching software, and made it a lot easier for you, rather than having to go in, look for the invoice and go, oh yeah, that's one that's paid, and then apply that payment to that sale. Whereas when it highlights it green on the right hand side, it automatically matches up the transaction, the bank transaction, to the sale. And when you click OK in the middle, saying that is the correct invoice to match this payment against this sales invoice, it actually applies the payment to the sales invoice in the background. So if that's a little confusing, if you know anything about bookkeeping, this wouldn't be too confusing, hopefully. But yeah, it's probably one of the good features in their matching. And they would also do that on the purchaser side as well. So the purchaser side would have the same matching process and same matching technology. The other good thing about Xero is their good partner support and freebies. So being an accounting firm, we got a lot of benefits in that the more people we referred to Xero and had our clients on Xero, we would get the benefit of being a silver partner, which was, I think, about 20 clients or more on Xero. And in having that, we got free software. So we got free client database management software. Database. And then we also got job flow management software, which was called Workflow Max. So that usually would have been a $164 subscription a month. And we basically got that for free for being a silver partner with Xero, because we had I think 20 or more clients on Xero. And also you had to be a certified Xero partner, which means you had to do a little course and just keep that course updated once a year to reap those benefits. So they did have a lot of freebies, which was good, and partner support for definitely accountants and bookkeeping practices. Then also they have really good reports. They have really good management reports. In that they their reports are excellent. I found that a lot of my clients loved the reports that I would pull out of Xero for them to show them basically what their debtors' turnover was, what their profit and loss was, and it was just pretty reports, really nicely laid out, and they can be the layout can be edited as well quite easily, which was very handy as well. So their reports was very significant. They also had customer reports, so customer reports by income. So what customer did you earn the most money from? They had expense reports, so where did you spend most of your money on your suppliers? So it was really handy to have those reports and give them reports to clients. The other thing was it's a very easy platform to use. So basically when you look at the dashboard, when you first log in, everything's very clear as to where everything is and what everything does, and that it's very user friendly. It's not too confusing once you sort of get your head around it. Everything's quite easy to follow, and every blue link in Xero is like a link to go to a different page or a different area in Xero. So you can navigate your way around the place very easily. There's not just one way to get somewhere, there's multiple ways to get somewhere, and it's always through a blue link. So I found that very easy to use, very, very friendly platform. So the cons that I found with this software is basically the customer service. It's only email support, and I found that quite frustrating actually, because when I needed an answer straight away, there was a 24-hour wait service. So within the 24 hours they would get back to you, but it was always via email. So it was always, if the email wasn't the right answer, you would be emailing back, saying, no, that's not what I wanted, this is what I wanted. So it was quite frustrating actually. Any email support I find quite frustrating. So then the other thing is they don't have a good inventory management built into the software. So there is add-ons that you can use, but they come at a cost, and some can be quite pricey. So if you're into wanting to manage your inventory, then this is not good technology. Not a good software to use if you want to manage your inventory. So the next one that I would use was QuickBooks. The pros on QuickBooks, basically it's a good price. I always found QuickBooks to be quite a good price. It's for all the features that you would get in the bookkeeping software. I would refer most of my clients to QuickBooks if they were concerned about the price of anything else. The lowest fee with the discount on sign up would be around about $10 to $7.50 to $10.50. It really depended on what was happening, but I think the lowest was about $10.50 per month subscription that they would sign up for. So that was a big benefit, the price. Lots of discounts, on the sign up, subscription fees on sign up, and also excellent customer service support. So they had live chats, and also they could use TeamViewer kind of technology. TeamViewer kind of technology is where they log into your computer and control your computer and show you around your computer as to how to do things and what to do. So that technology was awesome. And the customer support is definitely awesome with QuickBooks. And they had a reasonably inventory management system as well, but at a higher price per month on the package. So then the cons on QuickBooks is, again, I discussed this earlier, the two-step bank reconciliation process. So that was where when you reconcile a transaction, it's not completely reconciled. You actually have to do the bank reconciliation, which is the second step. Whereas Xero, once you reconcile a transaction, it also does the bank reconciliation at the same time, as long as on Xero on your dashboard you got the reconciliation tick and there was only one balance on your bank account. There wasn't two balances, which means that your bank account was out of balance. So if that makes sense, if anyone's used Xero, that should make sense to you. But the two-step reconciliation process is quite consuming. So I found Xero to be good for that if you didn't want to spend too much time on bank reconciliations. So then MyOb Account Right is the next one. So the pros to that one was the inventory management is excellent. So if you have stock that you want to monitor and keep track of what you're buying and selling and how much of and so forth and what you've got on hand and everything like that, MyOb Account Right is the best one to use. I found that. And you're not paying extra in any shape or form for the subscription. It comes with MyOb Account Right. So the other one is the multiple company use is cost. The cost is low. So with Xero or QuickBooks, when you have a subscription and you set up one company, then all the reports will just run all the reports for that one company, basically. You can do tracking and separate it all out, but your GST reports makes it very hard to have separate multiple company reporting. And you've got to do lots of calculations to break down the GST reports to get that multiple tracking. Whereas with with Xero and QuickBooks, if you want to track and do bookkeeping for multiple companies, then you've basically got to set up a subscription per company, which is quite costly. You know, if you're paying with Xero the standard cost $50 per month, then you'll be paying $50 per month per company that you're tracking, and the same with QuickBooks. Whereas with MyOb, you can create, once you've got the software, you can create multiple companies and you can move between the companies, and you don't pay extra for the subscription. You just pay one-off for the whole software. Basically, it's not per per company, if that makes sense. Yeah, so then you could just switch between the companies. One subscription for MyOb account, right? Itself, the software, for use of the software. And then you could track all your companies separately, do your inter-entity transactions, and run your GST report per company rather than having to break it down and work out, difficultly, how much GST per company. So if that makes sense. So then the cons. Oh, sorry, no, I've got another pro for MyOb account, right? It was great for large companies with many features, especially with payroll. So with all the other subscriptions like QuickBooks and Xero, you would have to pay per number of employees. And when you went over a certain number, you would have to upgrade your subscription, and therefore then you'd pay more on your subscription. So instead of paying 50, you would pay 60 and 70 and so on, and it would go up per number of employees that you had. And the more you had, the more you paid. Whereas with MyOb, it's unlimited employees. And so I found that quite good. If you have a large company with lots of employees, then account right is very beneficial. So the cons is the backup issues. MyOb is not in the cloud. Well, it's not in the cloud as such as what Xero and QuickBooks are. And in the fact that with backup, you have to make sure that everybody is out of the system before you do a backup with MyOb account right, because then it would cause issues, there'd be problems. And then the backup would only be obviously to that day. So then if something went wrong and you did lots of work during that day, then all of that data would be lost. You would have to go back to your old backup and run that again if something crashed or something went wrong with your file. So there's lots of security and risks, backup risks and loss of data, lots of risks with that, with MyOb, with backup issues. Whereas with Xero and QuickBooks, it's constantly updating and backing up in the cloud constantly. Every little transaction you save is updating in the cloud. The other thing with MyOb, the other con, is that with the update issues. So MyOb would throw an update in there where you'd have to update your software every 6 months or something, I think, roughly 6 months, sometimes a year. And then sometimes there would be issues with the updates and things weren't compatible, and there was always issues with the update. Software would freeze, all sorts of things. So, and I don't understand why there was constant constant updating with the software. I don't know why it couldn't just be left as it is. It's not like anything changed when they would do lots of updating. So I still don't get that. I don't want to speculate anything, whether it's money revenue building, like some people say. But yeah, there is a lot of updating issues and problems with that, and people find that quite frustrating. So then the other thing is, when you have a large company and you're using the software, when you're running reports like GST reports or anything, and you've got a lot of data that's happened in that quarter or that month or whatever, and you've got a large company that you're using this software for to keep track of your income and expenses and wages and all sorts of things in GST, it would freeze a lot. The reports would freeze, and you don't know if they're working. You've got to sit there, and sometimes it would take like half an hour for a report to come out, and you're sitting there just waiting, and that's half an hour that you're sitting there waiting for those reports to come out. So you can't use your software to go and do anything else, because if you touch the software, then it freezes and errors come up and all sorts of things happen. So you have to just let it run and let it get through its programming to run these reports. So you just go off and do other things, make a cup of tea or help somebody else out, you know, keep yourself busy some other ways. But yeah, like, so I just found that very frustrating too with MyOb, the lot of freezing in the system, especially running payroll. Yeah, so a lot of issues would happen when you do a pay run, and you would process the pay run, and if you had a lot of employees, sometimes it might freeze, you know, and so then you don't know if it's worked, so you just got to sit there, and can be quite frustrating. The other thing I found that is sometimes it would come up with an error and it'd say this didn't process, and then if you pressed it again to process, then sometimes it would double process a transaction. So you've always got to say, when it says do you want to process this or do you want to do something with this, you just say no, so that it doesn't double process a transaction. So yeah, that can be quite frustrating. So the final accounting software, I mean, there's many other softwares, but these are the top 4 that I would use a lot in my accounting practice. And the Wave accounting is the other one. The pro of this one basically really is that it was free, and it does all the normal things, you know, bank feeds, you can reconcile a transaction, it runs profit and loss reports, it runs a sales tax report, it runs a balance sheet report, runs a general ledger report. It does all the things that you need it to do. And I would only refer this to clients basically because it was free and they didn't want to pay for a software. Or if I was doing the bookkeeping for them and they didn't want to pay for a software. So the cons of this is that the reconciliation process is extremely time consuming, and the GST reports are no good. I just found the GST reports very limited. So when I ran a GST report, it would only show those transactions with GST on it. So it wouldn't actually show BAS excluded transactions in the report. So I could check those side of things to see if anything in there should be included in the report, or anything, you know, also, or just general checking of GST transactions, all GST transactions. It wouldn't run anything for the full quarter. It would just only show those with GST transactions on it. So sometimes I would run the GST report in Wave, and I would see that the sales report, profit and loss, doesn't equal the GST report in total gross sales, and therefore the report was not effective because it didn't show me all the BAS excluded transactions either. So it was quite limited in that area. So that is my top 4 that I've used regularly when I was working in an accounting firm, when I owned my own business with my husband, and where I would refer my clients to those 4 softwares: Xero, QuickBooks, MyOb, AccountRight, and Wave Accounting. And it's different for every client. So some clients have different needs, and the software that I refer depends on those clients' needs, whether they're looking for the cheapest alternative, they have multiple companies, they have over 20 employees, or they need to manage their inventory. So it really just depended on that. Well, that is all I'm going to discuss today about bookkeeping software, and my opinion basically on what I experienced while I was working in our accounting firm and dealing with general bookkeeping software. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, and that way then you could be notified of more vlogs from me. Again, I just randomly post blogs about lots of things, fashion, you know, all sorts of things. So I don't have a strict area, I'm just quite random. But yeah, this is just another vlog from me about bookkeeping software and the pros and cons. So yes, signing out, Kabisha Stacey.